Hi, it's Dwyer. It's Wednesday, August the 29th, 2018. Let's talk MVP voting for the National Basketball Association. Casinos have right now listed the odds. And what I want people to do is to take a hard look at them. Sometimes early odds are tremendously mispriced, offering gamblers value, right? But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. And of course, as always, when I complete this video, I will post it at bettingangle.us, a free site. Now, let me just say, I have a few simple rules for picking an MVP candidate. First off, it's very hard to win back-to-back MVP awards, right? The public feels that they've rewarded you already. Russell Westbrook found this out the hard way, averaged a triple-double, did not win this last year's MVP award, right? The voters, in my opinion, looked at the accomplishment and thought, hey, we've already given you the award for a triple-double year. We're not going to do it twice. So what that means, in my opinion, is that James Harden, who just won the MVP, is not going to get it, right? What we're going to do here is we're going to eliminate some of the guys who are highly ranked so you can spot the value. So I say, let's eliminate James Harden, right? If Russell Westbrook couldn't get the MVP with a triple-double year, right? I don't believe James Harden, regardless of what he does, is going to be able to win the MVP this coming season, right? We already know about Houston now, right? Houston also has other big-time weapons. Chris Paul is back, right? No one is going to be caught up in the moment with a stellar James Harden performance. Let me also say, too, that this is not to denigrate in any way, right? It's not to diminish in any way the skill level of James Harden. He is a great player. But we are acknowledging here the political content in MVP voting. I believe you can eliminate James Harden. Also, another rule of thumb I have is that it's most likely that the MVP, short of averaging a triple-double, has to come from a 1 or 2 seed, right? The playoffs don't count. Voters want to believe that the MVP candidate led his team to something special in the regular season. Now, I'll agree. Occasionally, you'll have a player do something outsized, like average a triple-double, right? Okay, great. That got Russell Westbrook the MVP. But short of that, I believe your team has to finish the regular season as the first or second seed in their conference. So, if I'm right, this is going to eliminate a lot of guys. LeBron James. I question whether the Los Angeles Lakers get even a 5th seed in the West, right? I think you can eliminate LeBron James. I don't see the Lakers finishing 1st or 2nd in the West, not with Golden State and Houston and OKC, Utah, right? This also eliminates Anthony Davis. Great player. Again, I'm not here to diminish any player's ability. But the Pelicans are not going to finish 1st or 2nd in the West, right? For one, they lost DeMarcus Cousins. Had a great year last year before the injury, right? They lost other players. I don't see Anthony Davis winning the MVP. I also don't see Karl Anthony Towns, excellent player, winning the MVP. It's too big a jump for me to believe that Minnesota is going to finish first or second in the West, right? They barely made the playoffs last year, folks. The last I checked, Golden State was adding DeMarcus Cousins to a team that just swept the NBA Finals. Damian Lillard, great player, superstar, right? If you play FanDuel, you know how good this guy is. But here again, Portland just doesn't have the bigs. I just don't see Portland making the jump to finish first or second in the West. Right? So, to me, this eliminates most of the players here, including highly ranked players. Understand, James Harden, LeBron James, these are guys who are favored to win the MVP award. I don't believe they should be on the list. Right? I believe if you're a gambler interested in winning this bet, when you make it to your casino, you want to realize that these guys can't win it, quite frankly. Right? Let's go further. I believe the MVP has to come from an overlooked, underappreciated team. Right? We like to get caught up in a story. Right? Some new team, the new kid on the block. They're putting their best foot forward and we're saying, yeah, we want to acknowledge that. We want to reward that. Right? That's who the press talks about. Here in the Bay Area, Golden State, I'll just put it this way. That first ring, wow, that was titillating. This last ring, even the players had problems getting motivated. Wasn't that them down at halftime of Game 7 against Houston? Now, if the players are having a hard time motivating themselves, if getting through the regular season is a bit of a chore, because winning is starting to be taken for granted on a team like Golden State, how are voters going to get motivated to vote for Golden State Warrior players? So to me, you need to cross off guys from teams that we've already vetted. Right? Steph Curry, 2 MVPs. We already know about him. There's no novelty there. Kevin Durant, let me say this. Because the mood is out there that Durant cherry-picked a 73-win team to win a championship, he's going to be very hard-pressed to win another MVP regardless of what he does. Right? You don't cheer for the hedge fund that decides to invest in Google after it becomes highly profitable. Right? So, let's just say, as good as the Warriors are, and I think they're still the best team in the National Basketball Association, I don't see any Warrior winning the MVP this coming year. I don't care what they do. Right? I believe voters are going to look for someone fresh. Someone from some team that we're all overlooking. Not one of these bell cow teams that we already know about. So, Chris Paul, great player. You play for Houston. We already know Houston's an elite team. They were the 1 seed last year, for crying out loud. Right? In the West, where we all know, the toughest players play. Right? I don't believe any guy on Houston is going to win the MVP. Right? I just don't. Let's continue. I believe whoever the MVP winner is going to be, that player has to be the centerpiece of the team. It's like Russell Westbrook when he won. You thought, OKC, Russell Westbrook, right? He's the guy. Even when they added other guys, Paul George, you thought, oh, Paul George is joining Russell Westbrook's team, right? If I had to think to myself, well, who's the core of the OKC Thunder, right? It would be Russell Westbrook. You have to have that kind of iconic value to your team. That's why, by the way, with the Warriors have had several good players during their run, right? But Steph Curry is the iconic person in Golden State. So even when you have a star like Kevin Durant, Durant has to realize if people had to name Mr. Warrior, it would be Steph Curry. You need that kind of iconic type of impact, in my opinion, to win the MVP. So, in my opinion, players who can't even show up, can't show up at all, who have doctor's appointments for Game 7 of an Eastern Conference final, they're not in the running for MVP. So that means Kyrie Irving, you're not in the running. Understand, when people think of Boston, they're thinking of Jason Tatum, right? Boston really is an ensemble. You're thinking of a few guys when you think of Boston, aren't you? Right? But the point is, a guy like Jason Tatum has captured the imagination, right? I would say Jason Tatum right now on a team with some guys who've really stepped up in big games, right? Al Horford stepped up in big games. But Jason Tatum really is the headliner right now in Boston. By the way, that was Jason Tatum playing in Game 7, giving Cleveland all they could handle for the Boston Celtics, not Kyrie Irving. So I'll just put it to you this way. I don't believe Kyrie Irving belongs on the list of MVP candidates, even if he has a good year, because his year is not going to be it's not going to be that much better, in my opinion, than, let's say, the year Jason Tatum has, right? Or the year Gordon Hayward has, right? The problem Boston has is they don't have that one guy who you look at, who you think, hey, this guy is the face of the franchise. And I would say if we wanted to reach a conclusion on who the face of the Celtics is, I would argue right now it's Jason Tatum, right, among players. In real life, I think it's the GM, Danny Ainge, but GMs aren't eligible for MVP awards, right? So since Kyrie Irving is not the face of the Boston Celtics, Kyrie Irving, in my opinion, is out of the running for the MVP, right? Other teams have similar problems. Half of Philadelphia thinks the face of the Philadelphia 76ers is Joel Embiid. Right? Now, let's be clear here. I believe in what Wilt Chamberlain said generations ago. No one roots for Goliath. In my opinion, there's a built-in bias these days against big men. They see you playing in the paint, they're crossing your name off the ballot, right? You're too dominant. Right? But understand, half of Philly believes that Joel Embiid is the face of the franchise. The other half believes it's Ben Simmons. Right? Because the voters won't be able to decide who the face of the franchise is. In my opinion, neither guy is going to win the MVP. So, let's name the guys who I feel represent compelling value. Right? Compelling value right now. And you're going to be laughed at as you go to the front desk to place a bet. And that's fine. That's fine. Because more times than not, the crowd is wrong. Right? So, in my opinion, One of the teams on the rise are the Indiana Pacers. Right, folks? They should have beaten the Celtics. Right? Some questionable calls in that series. As it was, the series went, they should have beaten the Cavs. And then the Celtics. That's another story. Well, some questionable calls went against them. This is a loaded team, loaded, with a lot of talent. And the face of the franchise, who happens to be statistically one of the best players in the National Basketball Association, is Victor Oladipo. The Pacers, to me, have a good shot at finishing first or second in the Eastern Conference. You can get Oladipo right now at 80 to 1 to win the MVP. 80 to 1. I'm just telling you, there are a lot of fans of the Pacers out there. I'm telling you, a lot of people who aren't fans of the Pacers like a good story, like an overlooked team rising to the top. Right? People remember when the Cavalier owner criticized Victor Oladipo, who has underdog practically tattooed on his chest. Right? Many people like me, saw some of the calls in that Pacers series, and even I started rooting for the Pacers. For the record, I'm a Knicks fan. Right? We're always orphans around the playoffs. Let's just say, even I started rooting for the Pacers, because I thought they were getting a raw deal in that Cavalier series. Now, if Victor Oladipo again, look at the stats from last year, if he again puts this team on his back and has a great regular season and the team improves, I think he has a better shot at winning the MVP than does, let's say, LeBron James. Right? On a team, by the way, that's not going to finish as high in the West as the Indiana Pacers are in the East. Another guy, in my opinion, who needs to be part of your betting portfolio is Kawhi Leonard. Folks, Toronto has one of the most passionate fan bases in the National Basketball Association. You got a real serious NBA community up there. Now, they were just the 1 seed in the East, and then things fell apart. Right? I'm sure Raptors fans have a complex. They're saying, man, why can't our team get over the hump in the playoffs? Right? Now, everyone knows Leonard fell out with San Antonio. Right? Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that Leonard is hoping to be in Southern California the year after this next year. Right? Everyone knows, too, that Leonard's practicing in the offseason at UCLA's gym with LeBron James. Right? Everyone knows that. But people also know that Leonard is one of the best players in the National Basketball Association. Right? And if he, in his first year with the Raptors, and he's the face of the franchise. Look, I love Kyle Lowry. But when you watch a Raptor game this year, the first person you're going to look for is going to be the new guy, Leonard. Right? He's the face of the franchise right now. I'm not saying life is fair. I'm just pointing out what it is. Right? Leonard grabs the attention so much that people on Twitter are talking about the size of his hands based on a photo taken of him with LeBron James and Kevin Durant. In other words, this guy's star shines so brightly that folks are looking at a KD LeBron photo and they're noticing this guy's hands. You can get Leonard right now at 7.5 to 1. I'm just telling you, if Toronto is back on the map and those fans get behind him, And the story next March becomes, will he re-sign with Toronto? And we're all caught up in the story, right? Then this guy joining a team that was a 1 seed, and let's face it, this is different than Durant signing a contract with a reigning Western Conference champion. We all know that Leonard really had no say on where he went. Right? Popovich and company basically said, you don't want to be with us, here's where we're trading you. Right? So people aren't going to blame Leonard for joining a 1 seed. If that 1 seed rules the roost in the Eastern Conference in the regular season, I think Leonard will be a strong candidate for the MVP. Let's name another guy and another team that's been overlooked. Have you kept track of what the Milwaukee Bucks are doing? Right? I'll just tell you. Giannis is a monster. This guy is one of the best players in the National Basketball Association. He's also the face of the franchise. Right? You think the Milwaukee Bucks, you think Giannis. I'm just telling you, if he puts this team on his back, and if they're the 1st or 2nd seed in the East, I believe Giannis has a much better chance of being MVP than Kevin Durant, James Harden, LeBron James. You're currently getting Giannis at 4.5 to 1. In other words, I can have a betting portfolio here of Victor Oladipo, 80 to 1, Kawhi Leonard, 7.5 to 1, and Giannis at 4.5 to 1. And if any of them win, any of them, I make a profit. In my opinion, this betting portfolio is better than a betting portfolio of LeBron James. His team's not going to be the 1st or 2nd seed in the West. James Harden, great player, but he just won the MVP. We're going to overlook him somewhat. And let's say Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, or Kyrie Irving. Right? All highly rated. All highly rated right now in terms of odds on the sports book. Right? In sum, don't confuse MVP with the best player. Don't say to yourself, who's going to be the MVP? Who's the best player in the league? Let me put down LeBron James. That's not the way it works. Right? Understand, LeBron didn't win the MVP this last year. Right? He didn't win the MVP the year before. Right? I believe the way it works is people say, gee, is there an overlooked, underappreciated team that is a 1 or 2 seed in their conference that's led by an iconic player who did not win the MVP last year? Ding, ding, ding. Victor Oladipo, I believe he's the best bet on the board. Kawhi Leonard, Giannis. Those are the guys I like. I believe those are the best value propositions today, Wednesday, August 29th, 2018. Now, we'll watch how the season unfolds. People get injured. Things could change. Right now, some votes are split. You think of the Warriors, you think of Curry, you think of Durant. An injury could take one of them out of the mix. Could leave the other one in a much stronger position to win MVP. Right? Maybe there is a team out there that I'm overlooking. I know the folks in DC are very hyped on the Wizards. And you have a clear face of the franchise there. I believe it's John Wall, who, if he stays healthy and leads that team to the 1st or 2nd seed in the East, could well be a pick you want to make. We'll monitor this situation as we do all futures plays. But just know, as of today, if I had one bet to make, if I could only pick one guy, at 80 to 1, that guy would be Victor Oladipo. I don't know what else you need. The guy's been dissed by an NBA owner. The guy's on a team on the rise that the public seems to be overlooking, that has a lot of other talent. The guy is the face of the franchise. I'm surprised he's not going off at less than 10 to 1. I can't understand how he's an 80 to 1 underdog, right? Kawhi Leonard, contract year. He wants to prove himself. First year away from the Spurs. Pressure's on him. And Giannis, wow, a great player on a team on the rise, right, where he's the face of the franchise. And if the team just does a little bit better than last year, they could be the 1 or 2 seed in the East. Those are the picks I like today. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section to this video. Thanks for stopping by.